Hi, I'm Tom, and this is my friend Amy. Today, we want to talk about something very important. Do you want to stop being lazy? Do you want to finish what you start? Then you need self-discipline.
But wait, what is self-discipline? Is it boring? Is it hard? Not today.
In this video, we will show you what self-discipline means in a fun and easy way. You will learn how to be strong, stay focused, and do what you need to do, even when you don't feel like it. Are you ready? Let's go!
You know, Tom, I've been reflecting on how important it is to have clear goals, especially when you're trying to build self-discipline. Without a concrete goal, I feel like I'm just going through the motions.
Absolutely, Amy. Goals act like a compass. When we don't have one, even the smallest distraction can throw us off track. But with a clear goal, we always know where to direct our energy.
Yes. I used to set vague intentions like, I want to be healthier or I want to be more productive, but they didn't really help. They lacked structure. Once I started defining specific goals, like walking 10,000 steps a day or waking up at 6 a.m. every morning, things started to change.
That's a great example. It's the difference between a dream and a plan. A dream is a wish. A goal is a decision with a roadmap. When we make our goals smart, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound, they suddenly become powerful motivators.
I've heard of the SMART framework before, but I never fully applied it. It felt a bit too corporate at first, but then I realized it's just a tool, a very helpful one.
I get that. It can sound stiff, but it's surprisingly flexible. Let's say you want to learn a language. I want to learn Spanish is too broad, but I will complete 30 minutes of Duolingo every day for the next 3 months is clear, measurable, and time-bound.
And when you see progress, even small progress, it builds momentum. That's what keeps me going. Seeing the streak on my app or ticking a checkbox in my planner, those little victories matter.
That's actually neuroscience. When we achieve a small goal, our brain releases dopamine, the feel-good chemical. It encourages us to repeat that behavior. So breaking big goals into small steps isn't just a strategy, it's biology.
That makes sense. I sometimes feel overwhelmed by big ambitions. Like, if I say I want to write a book, I freeze. But if I say, today I'll write 300 words, I actually do it.
Exactly. Small, consistent actions lead to big results over time. It's like building a wall, one brick at a time. Each brick feels insignificant, but eventually you've got a structure.
I think another issue is setting too many goals at once. I used to list 10 things I wanted to accomplish and end up doing none of them.
That's a common trap. When we divide our attention too much, we dilute our effort. Focusing on one or two main goals at a time increases our chances of success.
Have you ever had a goal that you just couldn't stick to, no matter how clear it was?
Definitely. Sometimes clarity isn't enough. You also need emotional investment. I had a goal to wake up early, but it didn't stick until I connected it with something meaningful, like using that time for personal writing, which I care deeply about.
So it's not just about clarity, but also about motivation. The why behind the goal matters just as much as the what.
Exactly. When our goals align with our values, they become self-reinforcing. We don't need as much external motivation because we feel internally driven.
That reminds me of something I read. People don't lack discipline, they lack clarity. It really struck a chord with me. When I don't know exactly what I'm working toward, discipline becomes a chore. But when I do, it becomes a choice I want to make.
That's beautifully put. Clarity fuels discipline, and discipline turns intentions into results.
I think the next step for me is to revisit my goals and rewrite them in clearer terms. Maybe even post them somewhere I can see them every day.
That's a fantastic idea. Visibility increases accountability. When your goals are in front of you, you're constantly reminded of what matters.
Thanks, Tom. This conversation helped me see things in a new light. I'm going to take this seriously now.
Anytime, Amy. Remember, clear goals aren't just the starting point, they're the foundation of lasting self-discipline.
Tom, I've realized something about my own habits. When I have a solid daily routine, everything just flows better. I feel more grounded, less scattered.
That's an important realization, Amy. Routines are like anchors in the sea of our lives. They create stability, and with stability comes space for growth. Without routines, we're constantly reacting to life instead of proactively shaping it.
Exactly. When I just wing it, I find myself wasting time deciding what to do next. But when I follow a routine, even a simple one like morning stretching, journaling, and planning my day, it puts me in control.
It's funny, isn't it? People often think routines are boring or restrictive, but I find the opposite to be true. A well-crafted routine actually gives you more freedom. It removes the mental clutter of constant decision-making.
Yes, decision fatigue is real. I used to feel so drained by the end of the day, even if I hadn't done anything particularly difficult. Now I understand. It was all the little choices wearing me down.
When you structure your day, you preserve your mental energy for meaningful decisions. That's why some successful people even wear the same outfit every day or eat the same breakfast, so they can focus on what really matters.
I've noticed that when I start the day strong, it sets the tone. If I wake up late and skip my morning routine, everything feels rushed and chaotic.
Mornings are powerful. They're like a reset button. And a morning routine doesn't have to be long or elaborate. Even 5 to 10 minutes of intentional activity can change your mindset for the rest of the day.
So true. I've started doing 3 simple things: drinking water, opening the window for fresh air, and writing 3 priorities for the day. It sounds small, but it's been transformative.
That's beautiful. And it's personalized, which is key. A routine only works if it fits your life and your needs. It's not about copying someone else's perfect routine.
I used to think I had to follow some influencer's detailed 5 a.m. routine to be disciplined, but I couldn't keep up. It made me feel like a failure. Then I realized it's about consistency, not complexity.
Exactly. Your routine should serve you, not stress you. I've learned to adapt mine depending on what season of life I'm in. During busy weeks, it's shorter and more focused. During slower periods, I add things like meditation or reading.
Flexibility is important. Otherwise, one disruption can throw the whole thing off. Like, if I miss a morning routine once, I used to feel like the whole day, or even the whole week, was ruined.
I've been there too. But routines are tools, not cages. It's okay to miss a day. The key is to return to the structure without guilt. Discipline includes self-compassion.
That's powerful. I never thought of discipline and self-compassion as allies before, but they really are. Being harsh with myself never helped me stay consistent.
Harshness leads to burnout. Gentle accountability builds sustainability. Think of it like tending a garden. You don't rip out a plant just because it had a rough day. You water it and adjust.
I love that metaphor. My routine is like my garden. It needs daily care, but also room to breathe. And over time, it grows stronger roots.
Beautifully said. I've found that evening routines are just as important too. Ending the day with intention helps me sleep better and wake up clearer.
What do you do in the evenings?
I turn off screens an hour before bed, Write down 3 things I'm grateful for and read a few pages of a book. It's not perfect every night, but it signals to my brain that it's time to unwind.
I think I need that. I often go to bed with my mind racing, especially after scrolling through my phone. Maybe I'll try swapping that with a gratitude list and a bit of reading.
That's a great swap. The brain responds to patterns. When you create a wind-down ritual, it starts to associate those actions with rest. Over time, it becomes automatic.
That's the magic of routines, isn't it? They automate the good stuff so we don't have to rely on motivation every time.
Precisely. Motivation is fleeting, but habits, rooted in routines, are sustainable. You don't need to feel inspired to brush your teeth. It's just part of your day. That's how discipline becomes natural.
I'm starting to see the big picture. Self-discipline isn't about willpower alone. It's about designing your environment and your day to support your goals.
You've nailed it. A routine is like scaffolding. It holds you up as you build the life you want.
Thanks for this conversation, Tom. I'm going to revisit my routines and refine them. Not to make them perfect, but to make them mine.
That's the spirit, Amy. Remember, the best routine is the one you return to. Consistency over perfection, always.
Tom, one thing I've been struggling with lately is keeping myself disciplined when life gets rough. When things are smooth, I'm pretty consistent. But once stress, fatigue, or emotional turmoil kicks in, my habits collapse.
That's a really common experience, Amy. The truth is, self-discipline isn't truly tested when everything is going well. It's tested when things fall apart. Those challenging moments reveal whether our routines are shallow habits or deeply rooted practices.
Exactly. When I'm overwhelmed or upset, even the thought of sticking to my routines feels impossible. I tell myself I need rest or space, but sometimes I wonder if I'm just giving up.
I've been there. It's important to distinguish between legitimate rest and avoidance disguised as self-care. The line between the two can be blurry. What helps is preparing for tough times before they hit, like creating contingency plans or fallback routines.
Fallback routines? That's interesting. What do you mean by that?
Well, let's say your usual goal is to work out for 45 minutes a day. On a really tough day, instead of abandoning exercise altogether, your fallback might be doing a 10-minute walk or even just a short stretching session. It's about maintaining momentum without burning out.
Ah, I see. So instead of thinking all or nothing, you create a spectrum of effort, where even the minimum still counts. That sounds way more sustainable.
Exactly. Consistency doesn't mean perfection. It means showing up, even if what you do is a scaled-down version of your ideal. Those little efforts are like emotional anchors. They remind you that you haven't given up on yourself.
That actually shifts my mindset. I used to think if I didn't follow the routine exactly, I had failed. But maybe the real discipline is in not quitting, even if you have to adjust.
Yes, that kind of flexibility is a strength, not a weakness. Discipline is not rigid. It's about adapting without abandoning your values. When things get hard, you don't lower the goal. You adjust the path.
But how do you know when to push and when to rest? I sometimes feel guilty for skipping a task, even if I really need a break.
That's where self-awareness comes in. Check in with your emotions and your energy. Ask yourself, is skipping this task aligned with long-term growth, or is it short-term comfort? Sometimes the answer is yes, you truly need rest. Other times, it's just resistance in disguise.
Resistance in disguise, that hits home. I've definitely talked myself out of important things under the label of self-care, when really, I was just afraid or overwhelmed.
And that's okay. Recognizing that pattern is already a step toward greater discipline. What helps me is using a journal to track those decisions. Why I skipped a routine, how I felt, what happened afterward. Patterns emerge over time.
That's a good idea. A journal makes things more objective. Otherwise, you're left with vague feelings of guilt or shame, which aren't helpful.
Right. Guilt doesn't build discipline. Clarity does. When you're clear about what threw you off course, you can design better systems to handle it next time.
What's one of the toughest periods you had to stay disciplined through?
A few years ago, I lost a close family member. I was emotionally wrecked, and everything felt pointless. But I told myself, even if I can't do everything, I'll do something. Read a single page, drink enough water, write 3 lines in my journal. These small anchors helped me stay connected to myself.
That's powerful. It's not about doing things perfectly, but about doing them meaningfully, especially in hard times.
Self-discipline is really a form of self-respect. It's saying, even when the world is heavy, I still matter. It's not about productivity, it's about showing up for yourself.
I love that. I still matter. That really resonates. I've been in situations where I abandoned all structure because I felt like nothing mattered. But now I see, even small acts of routine can be acts of hope.
Beautifully said, Amy. Hope is a practice, and discipline is a container for it. When you continue your rituals, however small, you're keeping a promise to your future self.
So instead of waiting to feel like doing something, I should act first, and the motivation might follow.
That's the paradox. Motivation often comes after movement. You don't wait for the fire to start. You strike the match.
This changes how I see discipline entirely. It's not cold or harsh. It's compassionate and strategic, especially when things are hard.
Yes. In fact, the most powerful form of discipline is the kind that understands pain but keeps going anyway. It says, this hurts, but I'll still take care of myself. That's real strength.
From now on, I want to build routines that can bend without breaking, ones that hold me even when I feel broken.
And that's how self-discipline becomes resilience. Not by being perfect, but by being committed, even when things are messy. That's what gets us through the hardest days.
Tom, I've been thinking, distractions might be the biggest enemy of self-discipline. I sit down to work, and 5 minutes later, I'm scrolling through social media or checking emails. I don't even notice it happening anymore.
You're not alone, Amy. We live in a world designed to hijack our attention. Notifications, endless scrolling, background noise. These things chip away at our focus. And the scary part is, they do it silently.
Exactly. It's like I go into autopilot. I didn't choose to get distracted. I just ended up there. So how do we even begin to control it when we're barely aware it's happening?
Awareness is the first step, really. We can't control what we don't notice. I started by tracking my distractions. Every time I caught myself off task, I'd make a quick note. What I was doing, what triggered it, and how I felt.
That sounds intense, but also kind of revealing. I guess once you know your patterns, you can actually do something about them.
Exactly. It's like debugging your brain. For me, I found that I always reached for my phone when I hit a difficult part of a task, like when I had to make a decision or solve a problem. It wasn't boredom, it was avoidance.
Oh, wow. That rings a bell. I always thought I was just distracted, but maybe I was just uncomfortable. Maybe I didn't want to face something challenging.
Yes, distractions often serve a purpose. We use them to escape discomfort. The key is learning to sit with that discomfort just long enough to understand it, instead of running to a dopamine fix.
So what do you do when you notice the urge to check out or escape?
I pause. I breathe. I ask myself, what am I trying to avoid? That simple question opens a doorway into a deeper understanding. Then I either gently push through the task or take a short, intentional break, not a reactive one.
That distinction is important. A reactive break is like diving into YouTube for 40 minutes and emerging groggy. An intentional break might be a 5-minute walk or just closing your eyes to reset.
Exactly. And you don't feel guilty afterward because you made a conscious choice. That's what self-discipline is. Being conscious in a world that tries to automate your attention.
But what about environmental distractions, like noisy rooms, cluttered desks, or even people?
Great point. The environment plays a huge role. I try to design my space for focus. That means a clean desk, phone on airplane mode, noise-canceling headphones, and sometimes even blocking websites with apps like Freedom or Cold Turkey.
I've heard of those. I always thought using apps to block distractions was a sign of weakness, like I should have more willpower.
That's a myth. Willpower is like a battery. It drains. Smart people use systems. Blocking distractions isn't weakness, it's efficiency. You're creating conditions for success.
That makes so much sense. I've been blaming myself for years, when the problem was partly external. I never thought of discipline as something you design around.
Exactly. Self-discipline is not just about inner strength, it's about outer strategy. If you rely only on willpower, you'll burn out. But if you build an environment that supports focus, you make discipline almost automatic.
So it's about removing friction for the good habits and adding friction for the bad ones.
Bingo. Want to write more? Keep your journal on your desk. Want to scroll less? Delete the apps or log out. Make distraction inconvenient and discipline easy.
That reminds me of something I read. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems.
Exactly. That quote by James Clear is gold. If your systems are leaky, no amount of willpower can keep you afloat.
What about mental distractions, though? Like when your body is still but your mind is jumping between 15 thoughts.
That's the tricky part. Mental clutter is often harder to manage than external noise. Meditation helps me with that. Just 5 to 10 minutes a day, nothing fancy, just watching the breath and letting thoughts pass without chasing them.
I've tried meditating, but I get frustrated quickly. My mind won't stay still.
That's normal. The goal of meditation isn't to stop thinking. It's to notice that you're thinking and gently return your attention. It's like doing mental push-ups. The more you practice, the stronger your attention becomes.
So, training focus is like training a muscle. And just like physical training, it takes patience and repetition.
Exactly. Most people expect mental clarity without training for it, but focus is a skill, not a trait. It can be developed, and it begins by noticing your mind's habits.
This actually gives me hope. It means I'm not doomed to distraction. I just need to be intentional and patient.
That's the spirit. Discipline doesn't mean being perfect, it means being present. And when you start reclaiming your attention, even in small doses, it transforms how you experience everything.
So, to summarize, awareness, environmental design, blocking distractions, taking intentional breaks, and practicing focus, these are all pieces of the puzzle.
Exactly. And the beautiful part is, each one strengthens the others. The more control you have over distractions, the more space you create for discipline to grow.
Thanks, Tom. I'm going to start by cleaning up my workspace and setting phone limits. Small steps, but meaningful ones.
Perfect start. Remember, the first act of discipline is to notice where your attention goes and then gently bring it back.
Tom, here's something I keep wondering. How do you stay motivated consistently? I start projects full of energy, But after a few days or weeks, that spark fades. I lose momentum.
That's a really common pattern, Amy. Motivation is like a wave, it rises and falls. If we rely on it too much, we'll constantly stop and start. That's why building systems to monitor ourselves becomes just as important as motivation itself.
I see what you mean. So, you're saying that staying disciplined isn't about always feeling motivated. It's more about knowing how to keep going when you're not motivated?
Exactly. Motivation gets you started, but habits and structure keep you going. That's why self-monitoring, tracking your behaviors, measuring progress, reflecting regularly is a game changer.
But how do you do that without turning your life into some exhausting checklist? I've tried habit trackers, but I always quit them after a week or two.
That's because many people make the system too complex. I keep it super simple. I track only what matters most. I use a small notebook, and each day I write down 3 things: what I did well, what I could improve, and one small goal for tomorrow.
That sounds doable. You're not measuring every minute, just reflecting on the essence of your day.
Exactly. It helps me stay aware of my behavior without getting overwhelmed. When you monitor yourself gently and consistently, you start to notice patterns, good and bad.
So self-awareness becomes your compass?
Right, it becomes your internal GPS. You realize, oh, I always skip my morning routine when I stay up late, or my best writing happens right after breakfast. These little insights help you refine your daily strategy.
I've noticed that when I go a few days without checking in with myself, I drift. It's like sailing without a map. I start forgetting what matters.
That's a great metaphor. We all drift without feedback. Motivation is emotional, but monitoring gives you data. It's the difference between guessing and knowing.
But let's go back to motivation itself for a second. How do you reignite it when it's totally gone?
For me, I go back to my why. I remind myself of the deeper reason I started in the first place. Is it freedom, growth, security, contribution? When I reconnect with that core value, I find a second wind.
That resonates. When I write, it's easy to focus on metrics, likes, shares, reach. But when I remember that I'm writing to connect, to express something human, I feel re-energized.
Exactly. External rewards can burn out quickly. But internal motivation, the kind tied to your identity and purpose, that's renewable energy.
So the key is to shift from I have to do this to I get to do this because it aligns with who I want to become.
Beautifully said. And here's another trick. Celebrate small wins. People often wait for big milestones, but celebrating daily effort keeps you emotionally engaged.
You mean like giving yourself a high five for just showing up?
Yes. Even writing one sentence, showing up to the gym, or resisting a distraction, it all counts. Recognition wires the brain for repetition. You're telling yourself, this matters. Keep going.
That's so different from how I usually treat myself. I focus on what I didn't do instead of acknowledging what I did.
That negative self-talk can crush motivation. Monitoring should be kind, not punishing. You're not a machine, you're a growing human being.
So it's not just about tracking habits, it's about nurturing your internal dialogue, treating yourself like a teammate instead of a drill sergeant.
Exactly. When you monitor with compassion, you create space for sustainable growth. You're more likely to return after a mistake instead of spiraling into guilt.
One thing I'm curious about, do you set long-term goals and review them regularly?
I do, but I break them down into quarterly, monthly, and weekly goals. And every Sunday, I check in. What went well, what needs adjustment, and what one habit I'll focus on next week.
That sounds like a ritual that keeps you aligned.
That's the word, alignment. Monitoring is not about micromanaging your life. It's about staying aligned with your values, goals, and growth.
I'm realizing that I've been trying to force motivation instead of cultivating it. Like waiting for the spark instead of building the fire.
Exactly. You build the fire with kindling, tiny habits, daily wins, intentional check-ins. Over time, that fire grows strong enough to keep you going, even when the winds of doubt blow in.
That's such a vivid image. Motivation isn't a lightning bolt. It's a fire you learn to tend.
Yes, and you don't need to tend it perfectly. You just need to return to it consistently. That's the essence of self-discipline.
Thanks, Tom. I'm going to start journaling every evening and make space to reconnect with my why. I think that might help me sustain the work long term.
That's a great start, Amy. Remember, discipline isn't cold. It's warm, committed care for your future self. And motivation? It will follow where your feet go. Just keep stepping forward.
Great job, friend. Now you know more about self-discipline. Remember, small steps every day. Big change.
If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Quick and easy English.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.